It seems that his long hair has been caught up. Avshalom's long hair has been is a nazir, as the Talmud says, which is a question. B'chlal, when did he become a nazir? Why did he become a nazir? It really doesn't fit his spiritual side of his personality. But today we'd like to understand. We're going to see the reaction of Yoav killing him. And we'd like to understand, there's a Tanakh there for you, the reaction of David to it. Furthermore, what will be the reaction of the men of David to try to bring this announcement to him? So we're holding we read that he's hanging in the air in verse 17, and then he's killed, by Yoav in verse 16. And the announcement that the war is ended has been made. Shofar is sounded. Everyone goes home. And we're told parenthetically that Avshalom, although he has no children, he has some sort of matzeva, some sort of pillar that's pronouncing his life, even though he had no children. Some say it's the one that we can find in the valley, in underneath Mount Olives, underneath the Temple Mount. It's interesting that it's brought here, right in and after the time that he's dead. Now, there are some that ask the question, what happened? We know that Avshalom is a fighter. He's a man of great powers. He's a cunning person. He's a shrewd person. If he is hanging in the air and time is prolonged and prolonged until Yoav is told, and Yoav comes and Yoav has him killed, do you have an idea what he could have done for himself in the interim? He could have freed himself, take out his sword, whatever weapon he has, release himself, cut off his hair, cut off the branch, and come down. What's the problem?
Are we sure he was conscious?
We don't know that he's not. And that question is a valid question. And in fact, our sages treat this question, this is a gift from me to you, don't mention anything. And look together on this work page you have in Source Daled. In Source Daled, if you can share with him, we have Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer. It's a midrashic book. And the midrash raises the exact question that we're saying here. In Source Daled, letter Daled down below, it says, Avshalom gibor koach haya b'milchama. He was a very powerful man in war. V'cherev mitzumed al motnav. His sword is at his loins, attached to him. So the Midrash asks, so why didn't he just, take out his sword, cut off the area of his hair that's caught up in the branch, and save his life?
Would that be considered a violation of his Nazarite oath?
Not in the case of pikuach nefesh, not in the case of if his life and death matters. Look what the oral Torah hands over to us. Ella rather, Shera'a sheniftecha gehenom tachtav. Amar mutavli litalot besari velo legehenom. Do you hear? According to the oral Torah, he saw, meaning he visioned, that he is en route to a bad place called Gehenom, spiritually, not to the world to come. And because he saw this, he said, I don't want to go to Gehenom. He remained caught up in the tree, to the extent that we're going to see what King David, his father, does for him in a moment. There is another opinion, Rabbi Yossi Omer, Shiva ptachim legenom, v'nichnas Avshalom ad chamisha ptachim. You hear this? there are, we should never know, 7 entrances, 7 corridors of Gehenna, and he's already made it to the 5th one. In other words, he's a very, very talented figure. He's reached 5 of 7 levels, apparently, of Gehenna, of hell, and he's reached them. I'm not going to read what it says David heard. We're going to leave this for a moment. Today, we want to treat now the reaction of top soldiers, like Achimatz or someone else, going to bring the message to David. And we want to understand, why is David so careful regarding Avshalom? What has been his attitude to Avshalom throughout? Is it the right attitude? Is it the wrong attitude? Do we have a way of judging these matters? So it's clear to us so far that David is very patient with his son Avshalom. After Avshalom did what he did, killing his brother called Amnon, David was patient. He waited years and years while Avshalom is in Galut, in the Golan Heights somewhere. And when he's brought closer to the kingdom in Yerushalayim by Yoav, he doesn't publicly be apologetic. He doesn't give him a slicha. He's hard on his son. He wants his son to do tshuva, but there's no sign of doing tshuva. Until Avshalom became so angry at Yoav, he went ahead and burned his field. What do you mean you're bringing me to Yerushalayim and I can't see my father? David continues to be so patient with this rebellious son. And now, we've now witnessed the rebellion of Avshalom. He takes over. And David is not reacting. No civil war. No civil war. And Yoav, of course, is not happy with this situation. And now we saw a terrible civil war. 20,000 forces of Avshalom's side are lost, killed. And David continues to be patient. David is hiding out. And now David is probably intensely waiting for a message. What's happening in this war? Okay? So let's now read what's exactly happening from Pasuk Yutet. Vachimaat ben Tzadok, we learned about him, he was a runner. Amar Arutzana. Remember, Achimaat is loyal to David. He says, I want to go run. Va'avasrata melech. I want to tell him the good news. What good news? That his son died. For David, that is not considered what? Good news. But he's so excited to do so. Why? God is judged from the hand of his enemies. In other words, Achimat, who senses so much devotion to David, he thinks this is a great announcement. And Yoav says, Ma pitom. Pasuk 20, Vayomer lo Yoav, you can't consider this good news. Lo ish besora ata hayom hazeh. You're not going to be giving good news today. In other words, Yoav knows to tell David that his son was killed is bad news. David is loving, even in the case of a son who is rebelling. David's unmoved patience, unmoved love. Even if someone is off the derech so bad like Avshalom, David still loves and is hoping that one day his son will do tshuva. So here, Yoav seems to be butting in, not allowing this announcement to be made today. Uvisarta b'yom acher, maybe on another day you'll bring this announcement. Vayom hazeh, but today, lo tivaser, you will not bring this announcement. Why? Ki al kain ben hamelech meit. Even if you announce that we won the war, the fact that what? David's son died is a terrible incident for David's point of view. Maybe you'll hear rumors. Don't tell him. I'm just trying to suggest. He's eventually going to hear something. But today to go tell him this matter, you can't do it. It'll be so hurting. So we see that Yoav has some sensitivity to David. However, Yoav says to someone else, Vayomer Yoav lakushi. There's a kushi there, meaning he could be a dark-skinned person and he's a regular Israelite. Or the Radak says, no, he's a Ger Tzedek from the land of Africa, somewhere in Kush. Or maybe he's even a servant from Bnei Kush. In any event, we all know that they know how to run better than Jews know how to run from Africa. They're super runners. Okay? Once we had contests in the summertime, we had sports here, and we had one or two guys from Africa in our department. And they really finished first in the race against the Israelis. Some of the Israelis are really fast. Okay? And they won first in the race. Okay? So we have Yoav. What does he tell this Kushi? Lech haged lamelech. Notice the verb. It doesn't say go and tell the Bisora. The word Bisora is good news. No. Lech haged lamelech asher ra'ita. Now, what did he see? What did he see? Some say, Perkei Rabbi Eliezer also brings it, that it was this person that saw Avshalom caught up inside the tree. And he's the one that showed Yoav what is exactly happening. That Yoav, that Avshalom is caught up inside this Elah tree. And he says to him, you go, just tell what you saw. You don't have to tell him that he died. Okay? Vayishtachu kushi liyoav vayarotz. He bows down, he submits himself, and he gets going. He gets going, fine. But look what Achimatz. Achimatz is so with so much perseverance. He can't sit still. Pasuk Kav Bet 22, Vayosef od Achimatz ben Tzadok. He adds and says to Yoav, Vihima, let it be what it's going to be. What does it mean, Vihima? Meaning, even if David will not be happy with the death of his son Avshalom, maybe he'll be happy because of the fact that the war is ended and that we won the war. That's what he's asking. Vima, why should you stop me? He's so ne'eman, he's so loyal to David, he wants to go himself. Arutzana, I'll run Gamani, so too myself. Acharei Kushi, I'll go behind the Kushi. Vayomer Yoav, for what? Lama zeh ataratz b'nei ulecha ein besora mutzeit. What are you going? What novelty do you have? I know that you have loyalty to David, but you know what? There's no need for you to go. You're not telling a novelty. The Kushi will be there first, and he'll inform David. Remember the word inform, tell him, but not tell him exactly that his son died. That Mr. Yoav wants to prevent. In the meantime, if we count, we have two people running because he lets him go. Pasuk 23. Vihima arutz. Okay? Vihima arutz. For whatever reason I'm going to go. I'm going to go. Okay? In other words, he has no reason to stop. Achimat says. And Yoav says, look, don't bother me. Go. If you want to go, go. Vayomer lo rutz. And now notice, Vayaratz Achimat derech hakikar. Vayavor Kushi. So how is this possible? How is it possible that Achimatz is faster than the Kushi? Oh, so that's what they say. He went via the Kikar. There was a Kikar. It was apparently a shortcut. And now he's traveling who knows how many kilometers, to where David is hiding out. And I'm sure we're going to notice in a moment that David is in tremendous suspense. The metach must be really great.
What's meta?
How shall we say, metach? The pressure is very high. The suspense is so great. David wants to know what's happening. So he passes the Kushi, Vayavor. From here we learn that the word Vayavor is to go up in front, to be first. What are we told what's happening by David? Pasuk Kav Daled. It says, David Yoshev ben Shnei Sha'arim. Really? What is the meaning that David is now sitting in between two gates? So some explain there's an outer wall and there's an inner wall. The outer wall has a gate and the inner wall has a gate. Now David is sitting some sort of fortified town to protect him. Remember, he was not allowed to go to war out of fear that every sharpshooter is going to be shooting at him and that'll end the war and that'll kill David. So he's in between two gates, and apparently the fact that he's sitting there, he's waiting for information. Vayelech hatzofeh el gag hashar. David has a tzofeh. He has someone that is looking out. Exactly. He has a tzofeh, and he's on top of the roof of the shar, which is en route to the choma. Apparently above the shar is a wall. He suddenly raises his eyes and he sees V'nei ish ratz levado. Now, let's think strategically. There's only an ish, and not a group of people. If it would be a group of people running towards David the gate, it could be the forces of David that are in a state of retreat. But he sees one person. So logically, would it or not be a retreat?
Not a retreat.
It would not be a retreat.
Unless the war went, unless everyone else died.
Right, God forbid, that's right. So you're saying strong logic. It's likely that it's one of ours, and maybe it should be good news, because if it would be a group of people that would be in retreat and we're losing. So here, the Tzofeh may understand, and therefore he says, Ish ratz levado. Only one person is running. Okay? Again, this shomer, this guard or this outlook guy, he sees things from the roof of the choma, and apparently Achimatz went in front of the Kushi by running by side of the Kikar, maybe some sort of shortcut like you said, and now he's arriving. What happens? Vayikrat Sofeh. He calls out to him. Pasuk 25 kafei. Vayaged lamelech. The Tzofeh calls out and he tells the King David, Vayomer Melech, what's going on? Im levado b'soa b'fiv. If he's here alone, then he probably has what? Good news in his mouth, in his decision. Okay? Again, the logic is, if there would be a large group fleeing, that would be bad news. But it's only one person, so David thinks what? He's in such suspense that he probably has a good news. Vayelech haloch v'karev. Okay? They become closer one to another. David comes closer to the arrival of this ish. Pasuk kava vayaret sofeh ish acheratz. Now, this guy looking out, he sees an additional person running. Who is it? Who is it? It's the Kushi. Okay? Vayikrat sofeh hashoer. The Tzofeh calls out to the gatekeeper, Vayomer, Hine Yishratz Levado. Vayomer Melech Kamzeh Mevaser. This probably means he too is what? Someone that's bringing good news. It's interesting. It seems here, according to the commentaries, that the Tzofeh, the lookout guy, is calling the king only regarding the first person, not the second person. And therefore, he's informing the gatekeeper, the first guy has arrived. First guy, what is it called? First come, first serve. There's no need for two people to tell me the same message. And therefore, right now, they're looking at the upcoming message of the first guy that's arriving. Okay? He tells more about the arrival in Pasuk Kav Zayin. He notices how he's running. Pasuk Kav Zayin, Vayomer Atzofeh, Ani roet mirutzat harishon, kimrutzat Achimatz ben Tzadok. Interesting. For that reason, he's with the binoculars looking up at distances. He knows who's on David's side. He knows who's the loyal runner for David. In this case, he knows who Achimatz is, the son of Tzadok, and he's run before. Now, let's learn what Achimatz says in a moment. Vayomer HaMelech ish tovza, v'besorat tova yavo. David seems very clear that he's waiting, anticipating for great news, good news. Aleph, about his son. Bet, about the war. Vayikra Achimatz, and now notice the words coming out of the mouth of Achimatz, and tell me if you can notice any change in strategy. What does he say? Vayomer el HaMelech Shalom. Number two, first was El HaMelech. He's regarding him as king. And then he says, Shalom. And then number three, what does he do? Vayishtachu LaMelech le'apav arza. He bows down. And number 4, what does he say? Vayomer, Baruch Hashem Elokecha. Thank God. For what? Asher sigaret anashim, asher nasu et yadam baduni amelech. But here in number 4, what does he say? What has God done? All those that have raised their hands against the king, he's closed them up. So what kind of language is he talking? First of all, he has a very warm respect for the king. Calls him Amelech. He bows down to him. Okay? That in itself is good news. You're the king. He's hinting to, you're the king. Meaning there's no one contesting your kingdom. Okay? But the fact that he says, Sigaret anashim. Who is he that closed up all the people against you? He's apparently referring to Yoav. Okay? All the people that raised their hands, that rebelled against you, apparently they were obligated death. Okay? And Yoav has taken care of them. Now from this you may understand what's going on with Avshalom. It's not clear. So Achimatz has tuned down his messages. He doesn't say that Avshalom is dead, and rather he has given a different message. Everything is good, you're the king, and all the people that wanted to go up against you are taken care of. But the king doesn't have an answer regarding Avshalom. Pasuk Kaftet, Vayomer HaMelech Shalom Lanar Avshalom. Is he okay? Vayomer Achimatz, listen to how he tells this story. Look at his response, how he hides or conceals the information. Reiti Hamon Gadol. I saw, a big tumult, a big group of people. Lishloch et Ever Amelech Yoav et Avdecha velo yadati ma. It's kind of weird and vague what he's saying, how he's hiding or concealing the death of Avshalom. And he becomes so perplexed that the words come out of his mouth in a very confused, unclear way. Could mean maybe the Malbim says that he's saying that a lot of people came around Yoav to encourage him, to go inform David about the victory, also maybe about the death of Avshalom. But it's not clear exactly, and therefore David says, I gotta put this guy aside. He's not saying clear things. Pasuk Lamed, Vayomer Melech Sof. Go over there. Go to the side there. Hityatzevko, go stand over there. Vayisov, he moves away. Vayamod, and he stands there. And now the second guy arrives, Lamed Aleph. Vine, surprise, Hakushiba. Vayomer Hakushi, the Kushi says, Yitbaser Adoni HaMelech. Okay? To my master the king, he shall be now given the good news. What's the good news? Kishvatecha Shem Hayom. God has what? Judged you on your behalf, meaning like a, shall we call it, revenge. Miyad kol hakamim alecha. Notice, every person that's up against you, God has judged them. In other words, it's very clear now, according to the Kushi, that his son Avshalom is dead. Yet the king still asks the question. Maybe he doesn't want to believe it. Maybe he doesn't want to accept it. As we come to the last pasuk, Vayomer HaMelech El HaKushi, HaShalom Lanar Avshalom. And now the Kushi spells everything out in very clear language. Vayomer HaKushi, Yiyu Chanar Oivei Adonai HaMelech. Let all the enemies of my master the king be like the situation of your son. Meaning, finito, dead. That's what he means. V'chol asher kamu alech, anyone that will stand up against you, lira'ah. So here we see, in a very vulgar, base way, God has judged all your enemies. He's killed everyone. There's mishpat, there's like revenge, and so on and so forth. This is now the bad news. What does, for David, what does it mean to lose his son? A son that's a rebel. Today, we're only going to start the first 2 or 3 psukim and go into more depth of what's happening here. The king's new reaction, beginning of chapter 19. Vayirgaz HaMelech. The Melech is mad. He's full of fear. Vayala liyat hashar. He climbs the steps of the gate. and he cries, Vayefk. V'cho amar belechto. And this is what he's saying as he's walking. Notice what's repetitive, what's repeated time after time. Bini Avshalom. Bini. Vini Avshalom. Mi yitain muti. I would have been better off that had I died. Ani. Tachtecha. Avshalom. Bini. Vini. 5 times. Just in this pasuk. Is that correct? He mentions the word bini, which is a word of affection, a word of love. 5 times. This message that David is so full of sorrow is brought to Yoav. Vayugad liYoav. Hinei surprise. Hamelech bocha. Meaning, the one telling Yoav the message, you would have thought that the king would be happy. No more war. No more civil war. No more bloodshed. It's the end of the revolution. You can go back home. And you would be so jolly and so happy. No. Yoav is told the king is crying, Vayita'abel, and he's even in mourning, Avshalom. Whereas the next pasuk tells us, Vatiyat shua b'yom hu le'evel lecholam. Instead of salvation that day, instead of opening up champagne that day and drinking a l'chaim that day to celebrate victory, no more killing fellow Jews, that day turns into national mourning. Everyone is in mourning. The nation, maybe by themselves, would have preferred what to celebrate. By large, all the supporters of David. And we have to ask, why is David so sad? How does he make a press conference to his supporters, the people that went on the line, went on a ledge, on the front line, went on a ledge on behalf of David? Instead of saying, wow, kol hakavod that you supported me, kol hakavod that you went to war, kol hakavod that you killed the enemies, unfortunately our brothers. Now, David is saddened? It sounds like the opposite situation. If we skip up ahead, we see that Yoav does not accept the fact that David is in mourning. Today has to be a celebration. Here in verse 6, you see it.
It's very interesting that his reaction when he heard that Avshalom died is very different when he heard that Amnon died.
There's no doubt that he was saddened. I'm sure he was saddened.
Yeah, but he's destroyed.
You're right.
The next verse again, he said,
I think maybe the national matter is also part of the matter. I want to explain. We like to explain here. We understand the orders that David gave not to kill Avshalom. But we want to understand, truthfully, David's attitude to his son Avshalom, who's a rebeller. Is it right? Is it not right? Did he succeed? Did he not succeed? It's clear, and we explained it before, David is waiting now the last few years for Avshalom, for a sign to do tshuva. Yoav knows or thinks that David is mistaken. Yoav is a man of practicality, reality. Okay? He's not a visioner like David is. Yet we see time and time again, Avshalom is not doing any tshuva whatsoever. The ultimate matter, as I read it by my Rabbi Rav Eli Mali, is the rebellion. Avshalom steals the heart of the nation in many ways, gets support from the tribe of Yehuda, walks into Yerushalayim, no conflict, no war. David leaves, his supporters go with him. Okay? David doesn't stop believing. He has so many supporters. He's a man of security and trust in God. And he's still hoping that maybe Avshalom will turn around. He has to go to war, but his generals don't let him go to war. You stay here. He's still waiting for a time that his son will do tshuva. Yoav, on the other hand, doesn't look at the shoresh, the root of the neshama of Avshalom, as Rav Mali explains. Yoav doesn't care what Avshalom, who is Avshalom, the fact that he's his son. Yoav says, what is the national security matter right now? Israel's in danger, civil war, 20,000 Jews have been killed. I don't want to take a chance, Yoav says. And that's what Yoav understands. Yoav violates the order of the king. The king said, La'at for Avshalom. Handle him gently. Don't kill him. Okay? Yoav knows, and he doesn't care. He takes the law into his hand, but he saw. We explained this maybe in our last shore. Maybe this is a sign from Hashem that Avshalom is traveling on his mule through this brushy area of this forest, and he gets caught by the branches of the tree, of this Eilat tree. Maybe this is meant from God. Maybe Hashem is giving us a sign that he should be killed. The fact that he's delayed right here. Okay? It could be that on Nachon that Yoav is a realistic leader, a realistic general. But maybe he sees here a sign from heaven, and therefore right now he has to be put to death. Yes, there's no doubt he was hung by his hair. And his hair is what brought him such brazenness, such matters that led him to think that he's so special. We read a moment ago the Midrash of Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer that right now Avshalom sees that he's en route to hell. He's en route to Gehenna. And instead of taking a knife or a sword, cutting his hair or the branch of the tree, and retaining his soldiers with them together to fight against David and maybe win the war, he decided not to do that. He decided to remain on the tree because he saw where he's going. He now...
That's kind of suicide?
One second. We have an expression in Hebrew. Ha-simon nafal. You've heard of that expression? The token, he now understands what's going on. That he's messed up. He's messed up with this rebellion. Avshalom, according to the Midrash, begins to understand the significance that his method of life, his management of life, is leading him to a bottomless pit, to Gehenna. And therefore, he made a decision. We know he's a gibor. We know that he's a fighter. He's matkal. He could be in the top unit. He could have cut off his hair or the branch and released himself and continue fighting. But he decided to die. He says, I got to die and I cannot continue to fight up against David. We could say, so Rav Mali explains, at this moment, according to Chazal, David has reached an objective that he set out to do, to bring Avshalom to be a better person. And therefore, from the beginning, David has been so patient, so understanding, so cushioning his son, even is going up against him, and he gave clear orders not to kill him. Why? Maybe he's going to do tshuva. Yoav doesn't have that outlook. Yoav doesn't see to the depths of the soul of the individual, and therefore Yoav takes the law into his hands. He did it before. He did it in Hebron when he killed Avner ben Ner. Someone wanted to become unifying. Yoav has his reasons. He has his suspicions. So right now, Rav Mali says that it could be, we have to look at two worlds, Ha'olam hazeh and Olam haba. This world and the next world. David was not successful in his way or his approach that Avshalom for this world do tshuva. He messed it up. He rebelled against his father. He helped cause the death of so many people. However, the fact that Avshalom saw Gehenna in front of him and decided to die this way, therefore he's mitakein. He's fixing his life for Olam haba. Okay? The crying out, Bini, 5 times, goes along with what we saw right now in the Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, that what David is trying to do by crying out 5 times and calling him Bini, through the prayer of David, what David is trying to do is raise him up from the 5 levels of Gehenna. The 5 levels of Gehenna. Okay? That's what he's doing. There's even an opinion in the Gemara Masechet Sotah that there are even 7 levels, And he got him out of 5 of the 7 levels by his crying out. In other words, David in his tefillah right now is trying to work to get his son out of Gehenom so he can have a portion in the world to come. And that's the greatness of David. He's an educator. He is both a visionary person and he's a chief of staff, as he was before. And he's doing whatever he can do to make sure that Avshalom maybe does tshuva. He didn't do tshuva for this world. His tshuva right now will help him in the next world. And that explains why the crying out, Bini, Bini. What we'll have to understand, that we're going to do tomorrow, God willing, is now the battle. Should there be mourning from the father's point of view? He lost a son. Or, Yoav says, what are you doing? You're mourning? You have to pat on the back all your supporters. Kol hakavod, what you guys did for me. Such loyalty. You went out on a cliff for me. You endangered your lives. You went to war. How can you slap them in the face and not say, Kol hakavod? Let's take out the champagne. Let's go back into Yerushalayim dancing together. Okay? Like we danced in the city of Tirat Carmel. We can't be in a sadness. This is going to be the battle now between Yoav and the king. Who's going to be right? That we'll see tomorrow, Be'ezat Hashem.